Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our sixth and very special episode of QuickBooks Labs. QuickBooks Labs is a fortnightly vodcast designed to be the place to learn all about QuickBooks and the weird and wonderful world that comes along. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant, QuickBooks Certified UK trainer, and owner of an accounting firm called Boffix. And with me is the one and only co-host of Ash. How you doing, Ash?
Great, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I'm Ash, bookkeeper / accountant / app developer / fence painter, and I'm also behind NetTracker. Yeah, so thanks, Aaron. So, what we're doing today?
So today, let's first of all just explain to everyone exactly how this works. So it's we go to live to the nation 4 o'clock every Tuesday. Well, maybe every Tuesday. We're thinking about next week is changing up a little bit. More on that later. But we go live to the nation every fortnight on a trying to keep it on the same sort of time scale. But that's not the only time to get in to listen to us. You have the opportunity to listen to us via podcast services around the globe as well. So if you're not listening to us live, like the beautiful people that we've got in the chat at the moment, so if you are in, make sure you use that chat box to come in and ask us any questions as you go along. But you have the opportunity to listen via podcast or listen live. Either way, we're here to answer your questions. So if you do have any burning questions, don't forget to use that comment section just in whatever platform you're using. And also, if you do have questions that you want for this next week's show, then don't forget to drop us a message on Facebook. With that then, Ash, what's the agenda for today's show?
So for today, we've got a little bit of news to get into, and we'll look at a couple of new features that have come into QuickBooks Online. We'll discuss a little bit about some of the features that are already in there as well. We'll introduce him in a moment. We've got Johan Gori is going to join in with the conversation as well, just to keep it nice and lively, and so people are just not fed up listening to our voices and get someone else involved too.
Brilliant. With that, shall we get our special guest on then?
Yeah, let's bring him on.
Hello. How are you doing, John?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Aaron. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. How's it up there in Scotland?
Overcast but dry. So makes a change from last week's overcast and wet.
I thought just before we get started with the news, Johan, just want to introduce yourself a little bit. Just tell us, just in a minute, a little bit of, about you, where you're from, and what you sort of do. Well, we've got a bit of lag there.
A little bit. He'll be back. Maybe back. It's probably because it's all the way from Scotland, you see. There's that extra bit of time it's got to get to and from, if that's what it is. You there, Joanne? No. All right, okay. Oh, no.
Hello, sorry.
There we are, perfect. It caught up in the end, no problem. Do you want to do a bit of introduction for yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Johan. I'm the managing director of an accounting firm called JGBC. We are based in Scotland, but our team is dotted across the UK, all working from home prior to COVID-19. So I feel I'm a bit of a trendsetter. Now everyone's caught up and copied me. We look after clients from conception of their ideas all the way through to wherever they take their business journey. But most of our clients are very small startup businesses that are wanting financial understanding to their finances and businesses from day one, rather than a couple of years later after they've been trading and now don't know where they've got up to with it all.
Cool, excellent.
And you're a fellow Ask Expert panelist as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I am slowly catching up with your episode count. Yeah, been doing that since March and really enjoy those sessions. Lots of great questions come in and keep you fresh and alert at 8:30 in the morning when you're not quite finished your first coffee.
Perfect. So, shall we jump straight into the news, Ash?
Yeah, so with our news for today, so we're going to take a look at some of the new features. We're going to come in to look at the month end and the tags in a moment. Just sort of looking back at some of the features that were in there. I suppose without sort of looking at some of the notes that I have here, with let's talk about the cash flow planner that was introduced. I guess, was that about 2 months ago now?
That's right.
Okay. So I'll start with you, Aaron. Are you using it much yourself yet? Have you had a good play around with it since it's been implemented?
Yeah, we definitely have. I mean, for ours, it's just more of that idea, especially through COVID, of just giving that opportunity for clients to have a look and have a prediction of what their cash flow is going to be. Now, I know we've said enough times on here that from a feature point of view, there's definitely better solutions out there. There's definitely better ways in which you can kind of predict your cash flow and you can look at it in much more detail. But the fact that it's in product and literally all you've got to do is turn it on and then let it do the predictions for you has actually been really, really useful. But it's interesting, isn't it, how everyone else how the perception has it been, should I say, and what kind of it's or what people have seen of it going forward.
Yeah, what about you, Johan? Are you using it much yet, or?
As a firm, we're not, because we use Float, and that's just a more powerful tool for us to use, and it's been something we've been using for about a good year and a half now. So, and it's built into us that no financial decisions get made in my firm without it going through Float first. But like Aaron was saying, it's a starting point, and it's been a really good conversation starter with clients who at this time have really, they've come across this concept of cash flow, and actually what we've been talking to them about for the last couple of years isn't just accounting rubbish. It isn't just an add-on sale. It's really important that they understand it. So the fact they've got this tool built into QuickBooks that they can use to do that and start as an introduction to cash flow and get ideas and start playing around with things without breaking anything, I think it's a great starting point for everyone to start a conversation with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was, and I'll put my hand up, a little bit dismissive about the cash flow tool when it came in. But I think, the thing is, there's a few things with it. It's free. It doesn't cost you any more. You don't actually create any transactions off of the back of it. And like you mentioned, Johan, it is a conversation starter. There's even just to get people to think about their cash flow and what may be coming in. And then if they need something a little bit more advanced, that's perhaps, do they need to look at having an app or something else? And I think it will vary from the business to business, as whether it's a small one-man band, they might be able to rely purely on what's already in QuickBooks. If they're a larger organisation, they might want something else, might they?
Yeah, it's interesting as well, isn't it, with this, that it's forced people to consider their banking connection, because the only way that it works is by having the open banking all set up and all working. And I think it's kind of forced people to go and actually thinking about what the issues are, because a lot of people are still struggling, aren't they, in migrating to open banking. And I'll say a lot, but there's a number of people out there that aren't actually been able to make open banking work for them. So I think this is kind of highlighted where people have kind of maybe before just not really seen it as an issue, or they've just quietly been going about just uploading their bank statements and everything else. But we have seen more of a push now that everyone wants to try and get themselves into some form of open banking. And I think that's where the feedback is coming, in terms of like, people are struggling to, or there are people out there who are struggling with certain bank connections to get connected and everything else. So it's interesting to see that kind of that's been something that's come out of there as a positive, or well, as a talking point, if you like, in terms of what people have got, or issues that people have had with QuickBooks themselves.
Yeah, I think that whole open banking has been a bit more painful than I think we were hoping it was going to be to begin with. I think it was thought of as a sort of almost like a little magic wand that was going to make the bank fees easier than what they were before. But I think it's actually been the other way around, because not everyone seems to have been caught up at the same time. I mean, Johan, has it affected a lot of your clients, the whole open banking switch?
It's affected a few, yeah. But what's been really interesting is like things like the cash flow tool. Now it's been introduced, and it only works with a open banking feed. Is it adds more value to clients? Up until now, well, I'll keep uploading the bank statements. It's fine. Well, I'll send them to you. You can upload them. It's fine. I don't need my data live every day. It's not an issue. But that's a really nice tool. I can't use it because I've not got open banking. So actually, tools like Cashflow is adding value to the open banking proposition, and it helps justify the switch a bit more to. So we've actually got clients that have actively moved away from banks that have been a bit slower and a bit of a more old school, and moved to more modern banking, because they want that open banking and they're fed up of waiting for their smaller bank to deliver it. So yeah, I think
that's interesting.
Yeah, as we add more tools that are reliant on open banking, it adds more value to open banking. It encourages the uptake of open banking, or the switch to a better open banking facilitator for the clients, which can only be a good thing for us.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I'm just looking through some of the notes. The 90-day reauthentication has been a bit of a feedback issue, but I don't actually see that as, personally, I don't see that as a huge issue, having to reconnect every 90 days. I mean, Aaron, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, we've never had it as an issue, and I think it's not a QuickBooks issue either, is it? It's part of the new open banking rules and regulations. So it's not something that QuickBooks has implemented because they wanted to. They've implemented because they've had to, and that's the only way we can make the connection now. But actually, for us, 90 days is probably that perfect time anyway, because it's normally falls in line with them trying to get their VAT return sorted out and update and everything else. So we've never really seen it as a problem. And if anything, it just gives us that one extra bit of just having a reach out to certain clients we may not talk to for a month at an end, but actually gives us an opportunity just to reach out and say, hey, your bank account needs reconnected if you can do, and anything else that we can help you with, just let us know. And so for us, it was actually quite okay, because it just gave us another reason to have a chat. What about yourself, Johan? Have you got anything that's
I'd just say it's a conversation starter, isn't it? It's another reason to have that interaction with your customer. And, hi, can you update your bank connection? How's everything going? It's a great conversation starter. And the clients that have had most issues with that 90-day thing, I wouldn't point my finger at the client or QuickBooks. I'd say it's the bank and the way they've set it up. So I bank with Starling, and I know the 90-day thing takes me 30 seconds. It's quick, painless, and simple. I know that clients that's banked with, say, Santander, it's probably a couple of minutes, because there's a bit of backwards and forwarding with authorization codes through text messages. But there are people out there that need to go and dig out the card reader. They need to remember the PIN for that card reader. They need to find the card for the card reader. It's a bit more of a laborious task. So I can understand the frustrations from that. But I think the frustration is directed towards the wrong people. I think it needs to be directed towards the bank provider to use a more modern facility, potentially. So yeah, it's just understanding, isn't it, what's causing that frustration, right? And you see it on social media a lot, that is pointed to directly at the accounting software providers when all they're doing is providing a connection to your bank.
Yeah, no, that's a very good. Yeah, that's a very good point, because it is, at the end of the day, it's down to how the bank have actually allowed that integration to take place. Whether they need to go through lots of multi-factor authentications to get the data, or whether it can be one that's fairly simple. So yeah,
definitely. And it comes back to that whole, the older banks are going through the archaic system. They're all built on old technology and everything else, where the new challenger banks have got the more easier to adapt. They've got APIs already built in. They've got everything kind of ready for the integration. So you kind of see why the new challenger banks have had it so much easier with the connection. Whereas your kind of old traditional high street banks, they're still playing catch up a little bit, aren't they, in terms of features and opportunities and everything else. So I think it's going to be a good thing when the banks do kind of take ownership and when they do have the ability to give this data. And we were given kind of opportunities as well of seeing what we're going to get out of it. So I don't know if you remember back at QuickBooks Connect, and it was a long time ago now, because it feels like anything past or before March was a decade or so ago. But if you remember, they were talking about all the little sweeties we're going to get for open banking, so the ability to get bank statements coming directly in and all that. So the future should be pretty positive when we get there. It's just, I think we just got to have a bit of patience really and let the banks do the catch up. And then when we're finally there, we'll get the bank statements, we'll get payments as well. That's still something that hopefully is still on the radar and still on its way. So yeah, it should be pretty good when it comes here.
Yeah, those auto statements would be really nice. I mean, I can really appreciate that as the accountant doing the year-end stuff. If you're in your accounting software and you can see the previous reconciliation and there's a little icon that says download or retrieve the PDF statement from your bank, I mean, that's nice. Because because you just want to see what does the bank statement look like at the end of the year without asking the client for it. And I know that they have got that I think they've got that in the US or Canada. I've seen it come back on through one of the Facebook feeds, only with certain banks, but I know that's there, and that's really good.
Definitely. Okay, shall we go on to the next topic then? So I've got two topics to talk about. The first one, really quick and easy, and I don't have an answer for it, but it's happened. Performance Center is still missing. So if you remember back to 2 weeks ago, I did a little live demonstration of Performance Center, and on that particular day was the day where it just suddenly disappeared from our files. And since then, it's never returned. So thoughts of if it's ever coming back? I don't know. Ash, any ideas?
I have absolutely no idea. I know we had a bit of chat about this the other day, and it makes you wonder, should we have actually received it in the first place? Is it something that's being saved for advanced versions, or whether it's something that's been should have been saved for a later date? I don't know. Did you get a chance to sort of play around with it, Johan, before it sort of disappeared?
Yeah, I got a chance to play around with it. I made a Loom video and I sent it to all my team, who've all said I'm absolutely mad because there's a feature I've done a video on that doesn't exist. I did promise them I hadn't dreamt of it. It was true, it was there. But I also happen to have seen that it's in America. So I've seen it. So I think it's coming. Whether it got released to us a bit early, or it got released and they found a problem and they've taken it away again, ready to release it again in the future, I don't know. But again, it was I was looking at it thinking this is going to be a great conversation starter for all those clients that struggle with lists of numbers. To put it into pie charts and graphs, it just makes life so much easier for them to see the trends and see the splits and proportions and stuff and ratios. So it's a much needed report that makes, for business owners who aren't as easy to read numbers as we might be, to see and understand what's going in their business. So I think it's much needed, and hopefully it'll come back soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was still kind of, it felt like there were still bits that were kind of missing from it, but it was definitely something that for the few days it was live, it was actually a really useful feature that we were quite excited about kind of playing with a little bit further and seeing kind of how we can push it and all that sort of stuff. But that's unfortunately it, isn't it? It's no more at this point in time, and we've had no news on it either, which is strange, because I was even by my BDM. So for anyone outside of the accounting side of things, your BDM is the person who basically looks after you from QuickBooks. And he phoned me on the day of it being released, telling me that it's live, why you should be excited for it and everything else. So they were definitely internally kind of promoting it and pushing it, and then suddenly it just disappeared. So we'll see. Hopefully it'll be back at some point, and hopefully not behind a paywall. Hopefully it's something that we'll all get kind of our opportunity to have hands on and play around with. My next bit of news topic that came through was just a kind of reassurance, really. Basically, with the summer update now out in the wild and people now being able to play around with it. So we're talking about the iZettle integration, we're talking about the CIS and the payroll and everything else that went with it. It coincided with the news from HMRC about their plans to continue with their push for making tax digital, and the fact that making tax digital is definitely going to be going ahead, and the timeframes have already kind of been set. So we're looking at not this April, but the April after. With that being said, QuickBooks has reiterated the fact that they're definitely committed to kind of providing the actual. We've just lost Joanne. Providing the connection going forward. So that's a positive, isn't it? The fact that we have the opportunity there to have making tax digital, and the fact, we knew it was going to, well, we kind of assumed that QuickBooks was going to be there, but actually them saying that they're definitely, looking into it, they're going to be ready for it like they were for that is only a positive thing, isn't it, Ash?
Definitely. I mean, I've sort of, not seen this coming, but as in I've known, someone from Intuit told me that it was coming, but I've just had in my mind, actually, for almost since day one of actually becoming a QuickBooks trainer, that more and more stuff like this is going to be in product, tax returns being that one of the main, features, especially self-assessment tax returns. And I've always thought that, without not sort of saying the, work is being taken away from the accountant, because an accountant still usually will assist their client in reviewing their VAT return, for example, to make sure all the VAT figures are correct. Quite often that's required, but it'd be the same when it comes to doing their personal tax. Okay, all of the data is already in QuickBooks, and they'll probably submit their tax return from QuickBooks for the Making Tax Digital. But you're still going to need the accountant to make sure the boxes are in the right place. That's the important thing. So yeah, I think it's great. The whole quarterly submissions, and I would imagine that this is going to sort of not just be the self-assessments, but going to be the corporation tax. Will it mean, perhaps in, let's say, 5 years' time, will we be paying our taxes quarterly as well as our VAT? What do you think?
I think the writing's on the wall for that one, unfortunately. And I think it's aimed more at like your rental properties and your rental landlords and those sort of small businesses is what they're really aiming at in terms of the idea of going quarterly. Joanne, what's your kind of take on it all, on Making Tax Digital and the fact that QuickBooks is committed behind it? And what do you think it's going to be quarterly as well, payment wise?
Payment wise, I think it will be. I don't see the point of filing quarterly returns, because HMRC's big argument, a big justification for this is it'll help you budget, it'll help you, the same reason they brought in this payment on account malarkey, that it helps you make tax more affordable. So I think it makes sense that we'll go quarterly in the same regards we are VAT return wise. do I, and I think it is a positive for many people, because the amount of people you still talk to today who, I've not got enough money put to one side for my tax bill. So if they've got quarterly returns going through, hopefully that will help people budget better and not get into tax arrears. But we'll see.
Yeah, we will. We will. It's interesting times, isn't it? I think, there was a big fear for making tax digital for the VAT side of things. I think that was justifiable to a point, because there was a lot of people who needed to make that jump and move into some sort of digital software. But I think this next jump is going to be even more of a barrier of entry for people, because there'll be people who said they're just rental properties. They've just got this one house or summer house or whatever it's going to be. And normally they have to worry about it once a year, stick on a tax return and job done. Now they're going to have to consider, quarterly returns or however that's going to be put through. So it is going to be an interesting one. I think it's going to be something that, it's going to really shake up the account system going forward. So, but, that's why we're here, to kind of train and help and assist and try and make it as smooth as possible with the help of the software that's there. So, let's bring it on.
Yeah. And I think we've learned a lot already from making tax digital. Like, we now know how VAT works with MTD. So the next stage will be getting everyone who's VAT registered onto MTD. But I was chatting to my team the other day, and we're not phased by that at all. We know how it works, and we can actually start today onboarding people onto that. That's fine. And 30% of businesses that don't need to be MTD ready yet are MTD ready. So there's already good headway there. And I think because that's going to be as simple as it will be, it gives us more time to put resources and effort into supporting the self-employed side of things.
Definitely put. Ash, is there any news on CIS?
Well, we know that the feature was updated last month, a release, to be able to submit your CIS tax returns directly online. But unfortunately, there's been a little error there with the way that the values are being reported in HMRC. So temporarily, Intuit have disabled that function to submit those CIS returns until they sort of get it corrected, and then hopefully we'll be able to enjoy that instant filing, just the way that we can file our VAT returns. It is a bit of a shame, because I'm looking forward to having that feature. I don't need it personally, but I know I've been looking forward to having it there for some time, and I can see the benefits. The time savings, going to be off the planet once it's there for a lot of people. But obviously the figures need to be correct, so that's a little bit of a shame on that one, and hopefully it won't take too long to get it sorted. But there's some bigger cogs to turn around in the Intuit world, so these things aren't always a 5-minute fix, even though we think that they perhaps should be.
Yeah, agreed. And it's going to be one of those as well, isn't it, where I think a lot of people have already got their own way of doing things. So a lot of people probably just using HMRC's portal for now to make the filing. But I think when they see, as you already said, the timing and the savings that can be done, I think we're definitely going to see quite a push towards utilising it when it's back up and running before. Because having it all there, it just makes sense, doesn't it? And having reconciliations done and everything else that goes with it just makes sense, having it all in product. So I don't know about you, Johan. Are you looking to use it when it comes into play, or are you kind of going to wait for all the bugs to be sorted out before you jump on it?
I think we'll let some people do some beta testing first, just because of that time requirement of, if it doesn't go to HMRC right, the time requirement and talking to HMRC, especially at the moment, HMRC is so struggling with their phone lines that it's just one less hassle we need. And actually, for the 5-10 minutes it takes to sit and plug it into the HMRC portal, we'll do that for now. But the ability to save that 5-10 minutes of time in the long run, that's going to be huge. And so yeah, once we're confident it's up and running, we'll be there using it.
Brilliant.
Cool. So what we're going to do next then, Aaron, are you going to take us through a little look at the month-end feature that
Well, I
was
wondered,
released?
are you in a position to do tags first? Because I think tags
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I think that'd be a better conversation that moves into it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the tag section. So Ash, when you're ready, let me know and we'll get your screen up, get your finger up on screen.
I'm ready.
Brilliant. You press the share screen button.
Yes, it does help if I press share screen.
You'd have thought by now to figure out how this works, wouldn't you?
You would have thought I'd have understood the amount of different sharing platforms I have to go in. But usually there's a button that says share screen. All right, okay, here is my QuickBooks screen. And before I do anything else, sometimes this works a little bit slowly for some reason when I'm connected, but hopefully we won't have too much of a lag. So we're going to talk a little bit here about using tags, which is a new feature within QuickBooks. But before you can use tags, at the moment, you have to enable them from within QuickBooks Labs, another great name. Under your company, we've got QuickBooks Labs in there. You'll see within here there are often sort of new features on the way. I'm going to check to make sure nothing else new has popped up since I last looked in here. The community reports we talked about last week. But what we're interested in here is tags, which I've switched on. There is, while I'm here, this QuickBooks Themes. It enables you to change the way that your screen looks from normally a sort of a light grey background to a dark background, which I personally don't like, but it's there. Maybe if you work in the dark and you don't want too much screen glare, it might be useful to you. Once turned on, you can change the way that it sort of looks on your screens using that themes option. But let me concentrate on these tags. So tags are very similar in a sense to using classes and locations. And if I were to create a transaction, with them switched on, and I'm going to tell you how they get set up in a second. With them switched on, you'll see these additional fields appear. Could be my screen's a little bit slow. There we go. So I've got this tags option there. So how do I get those tags to appear? How can I start using them? Well, as I've just done first, I can switch on those tags or the ability to use tags from within QuickBooks Labs. I've got this option here to manage tags. There's a little blue link. But what you'll find is that once you've actually switched on tagging, then you get an additional sort of sub-menu within banking. So you've got banking, I've got tags within there. So let me go into tags. Now, tags is a little bit like classes, but there's some little subtle differences as well. So I can create new tags. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, you can see I've got two tag groups. So what you need to do is, first of all, select like a group. And I've got one, well, I've got two there. I've got one for properties, one for sales team. I could create another group. Use a new button, tag group. Let's just call it advertising. And save. So I've got my group. So now you can see if I just towards the bottom, I've got an additional group in there, and I could have a tag within that group, which could be CEO costs. And I could add that as a tag, for example. I can click done there. So within my different tagging groups, I've got additional tags. And I suppose the beauty of this is that, you know, I may only ever want one account category within QuickBooks for advertising, but I might actually split that cost between SEO costs, advertising in magazines, advertising in local newspapers, and lots of other things. So you can either do that sort by breaking it down into having different account categories, or you could split it using this tag. Or it could be, as I've got here, with sales teams, and each time an invoice is raised, I might put a sales rep against it. Another example I've got is when I've got could be handling properties, and each time I incur a cost or receive rental income, I might actually want to tag that income against the properties. So just a little example. Now, if I'm looking at my transactions, and let me just pull up a standard profit and loss here. The difference between using a tag and, let's say, a class is that I can actually put multiple tags against a single transaction. So if I were to pull up a bill here, just open up, there we go. In my tags, I could add a single tag from each tag group. So I could put in there SEO costs, which related to a particular property, and that was dealt with by that particular sales rep. So these are things that I can do. I can have now 3 tags against that single transaction, which you can't do if you're using a class. There would only be 1 per transaction line. So this is per the whole transaction as opposed to line by line. Now I'll save and close. So if I'm using these tags, and I've recorded tags against the transaction, so let me come back to my tagging. We can now look at how that sort of data has been summarized. And at the top of the screen, I've got my money received, my money paid out, where I've actually flagged a tag. So I've got properties, different tags within those properties, property group. I could look at my advertising. I don't think I've got any income flagged against the advertising costs, or tag the sales team, the different sorts of income flagged by those tags there. And then the money out works the same way. I can see I've got my different properties and my sales team advertising. So we can look at the reports from here. I've taken a look at a standard profit and loss. If I go to a profit and loss, for example, what we can't do is run a profit and loss by tag, because it works in a different sort of way, because we can have those multiple tags across a single transaction. So I'm looking at the way columns are displayed. I don't see any tagging options within here. So there's pros and cons for using a tag versus a class. So that would be one of them. But you do have that additional feature or options where you've got it in its own, own area. So it's sort of out of the standard profit and loss area, purely looking at your costs or income related to a tag that's been grouped. So that's a little overview there. So what do you think about that then, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of tags. I think it gives an opportunity, and I think the main point of it is it gives an opportunity for a client to find something again. So one of the things that they always find on QuickBooks when you talk to clients is they'll put transactions into the system, but then they find it difficult to find that particular transaction again. And like you're showing just there, if they're looking for a transaction, it gives them that opportunity to bring it back. I can understand why it's not working in reports, but it kind of devalues the opportunity there, doesn't it, of what we could use tags for. It kind of means that we're going to have to kind of use it for its own particular type of use case. It's not just to replace, and I suppose it never was designed to be a replacement of classes, but it isn't designed to be classes and locations, is it? It's supposed to be its own little solution. So I think that's definitely something to consider. And also the fact that it comes in every version of QuickBooks, which is quite useful. Whereas locations and classes, you can only get it in the higher versions of QuickBooks, can't you?
Yeah, it's just in the plus. What about you, Johan? Have you played around with this? Have you got some ideas of use?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a few options. One is the one you've just given an example of to save your clients having an absolute mile-long chart of accounts because they want to track SEO, magazine spend, newspaper spend, etc. They can have tags, which is really nice. But we've got quite a lot of clients that do a lot of their own bookkeeping, and we have a monthly review with them, and we go through and help them. And one of the tags we've asked every client to create and use is to tag any transactions they're not sure on. So they can just tag it as a review tag, which means it's really nice and simple for us to go in and have a look at what they're struggling with and try and help them understand that. And also we do a lot of research and development tax relief. So anytime a client spends some money that's related to that, they can now just stick a tag on saying R&D, and it makes it really nice and easy for my guys to run a report within the tax system and see all the R&D bits, so we know we're being more accurate and we're not missing out any opportunities for claiming R&D tax credits.
Yeah, they're great examples. I think we had a chat about the R&D ones last week, didn't we, Aaron, or the week before? And I think that's that sort of client review, assisting tool. That's a pretty good idea, because it just, well, then again, it's just that sort of conversation, isn't it, with the clients? Almost an educational tool as well to help them get better at doing their own bookkeeping. Which, at the end of the day, if the client's still doing some of their own bookkeeping and they're getting better at it, they're happier, the accountant's happy, everyone's happy, hopefully.
Definitely. And I really like the fact that it's so simple to use. You've not got that restriction of having to kind of set it up, put the bits in. At any point, you can just quickly create a tag, and if the client's got a reason for it or a particular need, they can just create it directly on the transaction itself. So I think that's going to definitely benefit it going forward. I personally was surprised to see it under banking. Banking's starting to get a little confusing now to me in terms of the terminology and what it's related to and everything else. But it's got to go somewhere. So I suppose that's kind of the best place for it, isn't it? But yeah, it's because when I first turned the solution on, I didn't even notice it was there. For me, I just went to the company cog and went to lists and found it in there. So yeah, banking's becoming a bit of that whole section becoming a bit of a wild west at the moment compared to
it is a little bit crowded, and also in some ways it doesn't make massive sense to have it here, because if I go into banking and if I'm looking at a feed in a if I'm looking at a transaction within the feed, if I open this up, I'm pretty sure, if I'm adding a transaction manually in here, I can add the tag as well at the same time. So I can do it here, but what I can't do, and I'll just double check in case this, it could have changed since the last time I looked, but if I went to create a new rule, for example, the last time I looked in here, no, it is there. So, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't there before, but it is there now. So that's quite handy, because I thought, what's the point of having a rule if I can't put a tag on it, just in case? But that's there, so that could be useful as well. So at least you can add your rules with a tag. But I would imagine it's more, from what we've just sort of said, all three of us really, in many instances, we'd be looking at it after the transaction had been created to tag it, as opposed to actually tagging it immediately.
Yeah, but, it's discoverability, isn't it? It's giving the user, whoever the user is, that option to have that discoverability, to be able to bring it back again, to find it again. And I think that's where we're going to find a lot of uses for it, where people might need to do expense claims, or they might need to do the ability to go back later and start adding attachments, for example. And it gives them the option just to highlight a transaction as and when they're doing it, for them to come back and look at it later or find it later easier. And I think that's where the power is going to be. Again, I think we first saw it and we thought, oh, this is class and locations again, but it's not, is it? It's a different mindset to class and locations. When when people turn class and locations on, they have a particular need or they have an issue, or we're giving them class and locations to solve a solution. Whereas this is just purely the fact that anyone at any point might be, halfway through a transaction, realize something's not right or something's they need, or realize they might need to come back to this at some point, quickly add a tag, continue with that transaction, and then it's easy for them to find again. So I think that's more of a use case for it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely like a little memo. Sorry, Johan, you was going to say.
I quite like that it doesn't implement anything in reports, purely because it makes it a safe system for our clients to use. So the client can do all they like with tagging, and it doesn't impact on that profit and loss or the balance sheet or anything else. So it's quite a nice, safe way of them starting to get some theories behind their reporting and looking into things. So I think there is a benefit to it not being involved in the reports, but I can also see the benefits of it being involved in the reports. So it's just weighing up whether you want that safe sandbox for the clients to play with. Whereas class or location, if you start allocating stuff on that impacts on the reports, and that can create a bit of a mess to have to type at some point.
That is very, very good point. And I wonder if, partial exemption and things like that, I suppose that we've not used it enough yet, but it might be that there's an opportunities to use it for there. So I think it's going to be a tool that we're going to find more uses for as we go along, isn't it?
Yeah. I can see there's some limits on here. So there's like a total of a sort of 300 tags, which is, there's 40 groups. So you could have 40 groups, and that's 300 tags within all of those groups, which is, I think, is ample, to be honest. I start having a meltdown if I see more than sort of 25 chart of account codes. So if I have sort of more than 300 tags, I'll be even more worried, I think.
Can you search tags
though? Can I search tags, as in from the search box?
From anywhere? Is there any way of searching that? If there's 300 of them, is there any way of searching for that tag?
So I can only look for the different tags within
the group.
Yeah. And I can see within each group, with that tag group, I can expand it. There isn't a search box, so perhaps that's something that needs to come as a within the feedback, because within this area we can give feedback on this on this sort of feature. What I can't see at the moment is, if I want to report on these tags, so I can see from this screen that that's the money in on the sales team and that's the money out on advertising. It looks like it's just what I can see on the screen, as opposed to actually being able to print this off. If I drill down on it, I can't see any. I can filter in it. I can filter within my different tags by the looks of it, but I can't, just do a nice print.
And another thing that for us would be really useful, if it with the accountant's toolbox, if you could use it in reclassify as well. If there's a way for you can pinpoint them in reclassify, that would be really useful. But
I did look that. Yeah, not quite on that. Yeah, I'm there on that one.
But it is cool. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but in the American version of QuickBooks, the classes and locations had a bit of a revamp. So we're going to get that at some point, one can only assume. So I think it's they're going in different directions now, aren't they? They want classes and locations to be very much you're going to have it absolutely precise for the reports, get that for that particular need. Whereas I said before, the tags is going to be a bit more of an opportunity just to put a tag in there that you might need for later, and then it's no harm done, like John was saying. So
okay, cool. I think it's a thumbs up for tags anyway, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely fun.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Is that we're going to start doing a rating system going forward?
I think, thumbs up, thumbs down, or maybe like one of those sort of. I don't know. You've not convinced me either way.
Okay.
I think it's quite a simple one.
I like it. I do.
So, Aaron, we'll move over to you.
Let's move on to monthly.
I should stop sharing.
Yeah, perfect. Okay then, everyone. So our next feature we're going to look at is monthly or month-end review, should I say. Now, this is an accountant-only option. So first and foremost, if you are not an accountant, then you won't see this particular feature within your system. But it is something that's going to be really useful for accountants in going forward. Now, the idea of month-end review is giving us an opportunity as accountants to have a look at the data and make sure we're confident in the data that's there. So what I'm going to do is show you, and one of these things that's recently moved as well. So if you've seen the video that I did on it, it was under Accountant's Toolbox to begin with. But now on the left-hand navigation panel, you'll have an option for month-end review. Clicking on month-end review gives you effectively a checklist. And this checklist will give you confidence again in the data that's there. And it's going to look through the data and it's going to try and find things for you that you might want to have a look at. As an example, the default elements that are there is when you first come in, it's going to ask you to have a look at your bank transactions. It's going to say review now. So if you had any transactions that you haven't yet completed or you haven't yet put through and added to QuickBooks, it's going to give you an opportunity to see them. Now, it's not giving you a number or anything, which is a little bit frustrating. It's just saying bank transactions review now, whereas I know definitely in this particular client that there are transactions that need to be looked at. Although maybe because it's only looking at August, I might give it the benefit of doubt there. But if I do have a quick look, I'm pretty sure there's some transactions still to be dealt with. Oh no, I'm completely wrong on that. So no, there is transaction. Oh no, there is transactions. Yeah, they're just not appearing. So yeah, so it's not quite telling you a number there, but it is giving you the opportunity to review them. So I'm going to start looking at issues that QuickBooks may have found during this period. Now remember, it's looking at the top here for August 2020, and if you change the date, it's then going to change between what period it's going to do its month-end review. So in this one, it's only looking at August, and it's found one item in August that is what it would class as uncategorized. That means that you've not posted a category against it. So that's going to give you an opportunity as the reviewer, have a look at it, and then make an adjustment, reach out to the person, whatever it's going to be. But it's highlighting the fact that there is an issue there, something to look at. Then it's going to have a look at transaction without payees. Now, personally, I think this is a really good idea. Payees itself, if you remember adding the transaction into, say, the bank account or wherever it's going to be, isn't a requirement. You don't have to put the payee there, but actually from a reviewer point of view, so if you're asking your accountant to check your VAT return or you're asking your accountant to look at it in any point of away, having the payee there is actually really, really critical to us because it's our way of understanding if you've put it against the right category or not. Because as you can see here, without the payee there, all we've got is travel and expenses and 24 and the date. That's not really giving us enough to understand if it's right or wrong. So the idea here is it's telling people to go through and check that. So again, that could be one to have a quick look at. Now, being completely honest, I don't know how much or how useful it's going to be at this stage. It's going to be one of those things where we kind of want to pass back and ask people to get done for us. But it's nice that it's kind of been added there. Then they start having these additional checklists. So you have an opportunity to look at your personal transactions and you can link it to where that's going to go to. So in this case, it's going straight to our chart of accounts. So it'll bring up either your drawings or your director's loan. So you can have a look through that, make sure you're happy with it. And then it's looking at loan payments, cash transactions, and profit and loss. Now, each one of these elements here on the right-hand side gives you the opportunity to click into and basically give a status. So is it still to be done? Is it waiting? And we use waiting to say that we've kind of reached out to the client and we're waiting for a response back. Or, we're still waiting for a bit of information to compile or complete that particular checklist. And then finally, done. And once you put to done, you get a green tick there to make sure it's all waiting for you, all ready to go. Now, these additional items down the bottom, you'll notice there is also an add functionality just here. So the add functionality gives you an opportunity to press add, and you get to put any type of additional step that you want to put within this checklist. Now, the bit that really kind of gives something to think about is this QuickBooks page link just here, which basically means you can link it to an element in QuickBooks or a report in QuickBooks, and you can then bring it back in. So as Ash just showed you the tagging element of it, you could actually put that tag element or that report that the tag generates, you could put it as a QuickBooks page link. And maybe one of the checklists down here is review any items flagged by the client, for example. And then it could take you to the relevant area that you can actually see. And then you can say, you know, yes, no, or whatever it's going to be from there. They also have 3 different sections at the top. So you have transaction review, account reconciliation, and final review. So we're in transaction review. We've been looking at our transactions. Once we're happy all them are done, we'll move on to account reconciliation. And here, what it does is it takes you to that view that as accountants we've had before. So we have this same review in our overview. So it's the same view we've had here, basically telling us when was the last time an account was reconciled. So as a reviewer, we're looking to see that this date here is after whatever date we're looking at. And that's going to give us an opportunity to have a look at it and look into it. The nice thing is it's not just the cash account. It's bringing on all the other accounts. So it's giving us that kind of push we need to make sure that we've reconciled everything from the VAT. Oh no, in fact, I'm telling you a lie, it is just cash accounts at this point. So it is just making sure that all the cash accounts have gone through there. But again, additional items gives you the opportunity to add other items in. So in there, I would be looking at making sure things like my VAT account was reconciled and items like that. And again, when you press the add button, you have the chance to put a link in there and you could link it directly to the page where the reconciliation for that VAT return is. So it's giving you these opportunities to look at things and make sure that you're happy with them. Then there is an opportunity here for what we call final review. Going in there, at the moment, it's giving you the opportunity to look at your balance sheet and profit and loss, and you can click into it and bring it in. Now, one of the things that I mentioned on my previous video, and one of the things that I kind of felt was missing somewhat, has already been implemented. So if I jump into my QuickBooks Accountant, now again, for anyone who's using this and the user are not accountant, QuickBooks Accountant is a place where we can look at all our clients. Well, we've now been given this opportunity here where it says bookkeeping, where we can actually see how our clients are doing and we can see what stage their review is at. So we can go through and we can see. So here I've got the QB case studies that we were just looking at. We've got the 3 sections, so transaction, review, and then final review, and see what stage they're at so I can see them straight away. And also gives me a link here to go straight to the month-end review of each one. And the only thing that is lacking here at the moment is an ability to filter or look into this in any detail as to which client, because if you've got 500 odd clients on here, it might be a little bit unwieldy. But that is where this whole new lead one we brought in last time can be really useful. So now we have the ability to put a different team member against a different client, which will make your list more manageable. So we've started to utilize the fact that we're splitting our clients into different leads. And the only reason we're doing that is so that then we can start utilizing this month-end review so they can take ownership of it. So it's definitely something that is going to be really useful going forward. And especially with the fact that we've just been talking about how Making Tax Digital is coming up, and we're looking at cash flow forecasts, and we're looking at all these different little features that are coming our way. Well, now more than ever, it's really critical that our data is spot on, and having an opportunity to go into month-end review gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're confident in that report and that that data's there. So this is all about making sure that the data we're putting into QuickBooks is really, really good and really strong. Now, there's a few little things I think that, or we're definitely putting feedback into, hopefully kind of try and steer them in a different direction. And that's basically utilizing what they've already got. So if you have ever used the Smart Scan feature within QuickBooks, so if I go to taxes, this is their other checklist that they've got implemented. And the Smart Scan feature is very similar to what we're looking at, but just gives you a little bit extra. So it's looking at things like duplicates and inconsistent codes and stuff like that. So hopefully there's a way in which we can kind of implement or get them sort of features in there as well. So yeah, so there is month-end review. Ash, what do you think to that one?
I love it. It's my honest answer, because these are all of the things that when I was, doing a lot of routine practice stuff for my clients, when I was, sort of in practice, they were the things that a lot of the stuff, I've been doing it for years, so I would do it really without, thinking too much about it. But if I were to say, if I was starting from scratch and decided tomorrow, okay, I'm going to build a bookkeeping business again, then as I was adding clients and I'm putting all of these, almost like routine steps of what I would do for each one, it's at this point that I'll be much happier if I were employing an employee or a subcontractor to say, I've got these steps in place, might have a little manual or whatever, but they're all in that bookkeeping, transaction review, month-end review. You can't really go wrong because, well, you could, right? You're literally minimizing the errors, just making things simpler. So I think it's fantastic.
Definitely. And, it's one of those where, again, it's built directly into the product. So it forces people to use it and forces people, well, at least to look at it and to hopefully consider using it. Are you using anything yourself? Have you got any month-end procedures or anything you've been using outside of QuickBooks, or are you going to be just jumping on this month-end review?
We've been waiting since this got teased to us back in, I think it was the spring release, was it? Autumn release last year. They've been teasing this, and I've been nagging almost weekly for it. So we've got 2 use cases for this. We've got one, which is our senior team members reviewing the bookkeeping that our bookkeepers have done. So in-house, fantastic. But this bookkeeping support package we have, where tags are going to be great for tagging things that we need to review with the client, because the client's not quite sure and they're doing their own bookkeeping. This has just made that service so much more efficient for us, so we can take on more clients within that service and support them, because we've now got this process built in. So, for example, we've been using this for the last couple of weeks, and it has taken one of my team members about 25% less time to do a monthly check on a bookkeeping client in QuickBooks than it would in a competitive piece of software. Because we've just got this process, it clicks in, it goes straight through, it's fantastic. We've got some amendments we'd love them to do. So we'd like to be able to bulk edit the steps. We think that this step needs to go across every client. We don't have to add it in every time. We really like that linking into QuickBooks reports and stuff. We'd love it if that could then link into something like Receipt Bank. So one of the steps is just check Receipt Bank's been cleared, and there's nothing hanging around in there. So if we could talk to external parties, that'd be amazing. And we'd like them to change it from month-end review to period-end review, purely because we've got some clients where we want to be doing this check weekly. We've got some that are monthly. We've got some that might be bi-monthly. A bit of flexibility in the reoccurrence of it would be fantastic for us. But it has been everything they promised and a little bit more, I think. Huge bit of product development for us and our business. So absolutely loving it.
That's absolutely great news. That's great news. And I know you said we've been teased it before, and you're right, we have been teased it. But also, I think we've also we got teased those extra bits of gamification and everything that's coming through as well afterwards. So I think the future's kind of bright in terms of, I think we're kind of pivoting now in terms of, we've been given a lot of tools to make sure data getting into the system is efficient and quick and easy and simple, and they'll keep improving on that. But I think now this new one of making sure the data's right is really big as well. So this whole gamification is all about going, right, how good is your data in that software? How good are you utilizing the software, the solutions we've got? I think that's going to be quite powerful as well, isn't it?
Oh, huge, yeah. Because one of the things they're talking about is the quality of your books and the efficiency of your bookkeeping. And if you can get your bookkeeping to be even more efficient, then everyone's winning. So, I think some fantastic tools there or on their way. So, it's definitely increasing the quality of our service to our clients.
Definitely. Yeah. And do you think there'll be any benefit in this, Ash, if this wasn't only an accountant only view, but it was a client only view? Do you think that's something that would be useful or not?
Well, I'll put my hand up here as I suppose I sort of can sit on both sides of the fence as almost like the internal accountant of a sort of telecoms business. So I don't really do the year-end stuff, but I'm unfortunate in the fact that I've got my own QBO account, so I can access everything from there. Now, if I didn't, and I was just the end user, but I'm still responsible for basically most of the financial things of the business, each month or quarter, then I think yes, it should be one of those things that is almost available at an add a user level. So if you're adding a new user, and I suppose we're sort of going back onto things that we said about users before, being able to have it a bit more granular. But one of them would be, could this user have the ability of using the month-end tool, review tool? Simple yes or no. Because, it would be extremely important to a management accountant within an organisation if they're running through stuff. So they can look at it before the accountant has to do the end review. And I agree with Johan. It's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I'm in the middle of writing out some sort of educational notes for myself and to pass across for things like and I was thinking calling it period end review, because you might not do it every month or every quarter. You might just do it once a year or once a week, even if you were that strict about it. But yeah, definitely a period, not just a month.
Yeah, and I think as well, there could be use here for, if you've got that situation where your client is doing the books as much as they can, but they want an accountant to come in and check it before a VAT return. Well, if you could kind of convince them to get those month-end reviews done as part and parcel of it, then you are kind of, when the client passes the information over to you, they're already passing it at a state that they're confident and comfortable with. And that could be quite powerful and beneficial. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I think that, maybe one day, hopefully we'll see the client have some form of use of it or some option to it. Maybe it's because at this point it is very technical. So maybe they would need a more streamlined version to a point. So maybe it would be more of a smart scan sort of approach as opposed to what we've got now. But it is definitely something hopefully we'll see later down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, it's all how the end user is educated how to use it. So you can sort of just say, well, just take a look in this particular area and do as much as you can with it, or have a look in it. I think we better start wrapping it up, haven't we, Aaron? We've got about nearly 10 minutes over.
Yeah, definitely. And we will just quickly see if there's been any comments. Remember, if you do have any questions, then the live comment area is the place to get those over to us. And we do have a few, but I'm just going to bring up, with us going over time, I'm just going to bring up the one question for us to quickly mull over, because I think it should be a nice, quick and easy one. So Kirsty Dixon asks, hi guys, can we have more than one person accessing our QuickBooks account with different logins? So really straightforward there. Ash, do you want to just answer that one for Kirsty?
Yeah, no problem at all. So Kirsty, this is going to depend on the subscription level that you have with QuickBooks. So I can't see from there whether you're the accountant or unless you're going to take it that you're the end user. Now, if you're on the simple start, then you would just have the one user. There are different options of users. So when you are adding a new user, you can add someone to look at reports only. You can add users to use timesheets only, depending on the subscription level. They don't actually eat into your user allowances. When you move up to essentials, then you can have 3 users. And again, it's the same if it's a report only, if it's a timesheet only, won't take up any of your user allowances. If you're on the plus version, it's going to be 5 users. And with every single one of those user types, you can have up to 2 accounting firms, and as many people within those accounting firms can actually access your QuickBooks file. So hopefully that's answered that question there for you.
Definitely. And Johan, it works really well, doesn't it, where you've got multiple people? There's never any issues or anything, is there? It just works seamlessly, doesn't it?
It does. It's fantastic. The amount of times that my team might get stuck on something, and they'll just jump on the call on Zoom and say, "Can we have a look at this together?" And instead of just sharing the screen and trying to communicate that way, we will I'll log in, you log in, and we can be looking at different reports at different times and try and work out where the problem is. And it just means you can really collaborate as a team on something, rather than waiting for someone to do something and then report it again. And then someone else goes, right, okay, we've not fixed it here, let's have a look at this, and you wait for someone to do that. The collaboration is fantastic on it.
Definitely. Gone are the days where we've had to pass around backups and having to take them to one and then over to the other and restore and then, restore the wrong one, and nightmare, wasn't it? Back when it was all.
Can you log out while I log in?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So gone are those days, and hopefully we never have to go back to anything like that again, because those days were a nightmare. Okay, with that then, apologies we can't go through the rest of the questions, but remember, if you do have any questions, make sure you use that Facebook group to let us know. We are thinking about ways of making you able to ask us questions, so we're going to look at ways in which we can give you the opportunity to ask questions to us. So, keep an eye out on the group itself, and we'll give you an indication of how that's going to go. But with that, Ash, what we got to look forward to next time?
Well, just before we go on to that, I just want to say thank you, Johan, for joining us. Really been a pleasure having you on with us. Hope you enjoyed coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. So we will need to move next episodes back a couple of days, because I can't make 2 weeks today. So it will be Thursday, the 17th of September, same time at 4 o'clock. We may have an app provider that's going to come on with us and talk about ways of doing some debt collection. It's got an integration with QuickBooks, so they're keen to come on. I just need to come back and confirm that, but if not, I'm sure we'll find something else interesting to talk about, but that looks like what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time.
Brilliant. Well, with that, a big thank you to me, and again, thanks, Johan, for coming along. Have you got a Twitter account or anything you want to plug, or anywhere people should follow you on, or anything like that?
Yeah, they can find myself and my team at jgbc.co.uk. That works on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, of course. So, yeah, and
all the
any messages. Happy for people to reach out if they've got any.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, it's a thank you from me and a goodbye from me, Ash.
Yeah, thanks again. See you soon.
Cheers all. Bye for now.
Bye.